Imagine walking through Boston on a cold winter day in 1919. The air smells faintly sweet, the streets are quiet, and then suddenly a thunderous roar fills the sky. Within seconds, a massive wall of dark, sticky molasses rushes through the streets, 25 feet high, moving faster than a horse can run, crushing buildings, sweeping away people, wagons, and horses. This is not a legend. It's a true story of the day Boston was drowned in molasses.
It was January 15th, 1919. The First World War had just ended, and Boston's North End was alive with noise. Factory whistles, horses clopping on cobblestones, the hum of ships along the harbor. At 529 Commercial Street stood a giant steel tank owned by the Purity Distilling Company. It was 50 feet tall, 90 feet wide, and it held more than 2 million gallons of molasses, a thick syrup used to make alcohol, rum, and even ammunition. To the company, it was liquid gold. To Boston, it would soon become a nightmare.
People living nearby often heard strange noises coming from the tank. Groaning metal, popping sounds, even small leaks of syrup that oozed from its sides. Children loved it. They'd scoop up the dripping molasses with sticks and taste it. But the workers, they were worried. They complained to the managers. And what did the company do? They painted the tank brown to hide the leaks. What no one knew was that the steel walls were dangerously thin, too thin to hold the enormous pressure building inside. The disaster wasn't an accident waiting to happen. It was a certainty.
It happened just after noon. The sun was bright, the temperature was rising, and the molasses inside the tank began to expand. At 12:30 p.m., a sound like a machine gun ripped through the air. Then, silence, and in the next instant, the tank exploded. A roaring brown wave, 25 feet high, burst out with the force of a bomb. Molasses surged through the streets at 35 miles per hour, fast enough to knock down a train. A city drowned in sweetness and death.
The first to die were horses pulling wagons along the street. Buildings crumbled like paper. People were trapped, unable to move, unable to breathe. One witness said, "It looked like a brown tidal wave glistening in the sunlight." Another said, "I heard screams, but they stopped too quickly." A piece of the steel tank flew across the harbor and smashed into buildings blocks away. The smell of sugar filled the air, but it mixed with the sound of destruction. People ran, trying to escape the molasses and its terror.
Firefighters, police, and Red Cross workers rushed to the scene, but they found themselves sinking in the sticky mess. Their boots stuck, their hands couldn't move. They used ladders, planks, even rowboats to reach survivors. They dug through the molasses for hours, and what they found was heartbreaking. Men, women, and children, suffocated, trapped, or crushed. By nightfall, the city's lights reflected off a sea of dark syrup. Boston had become a sticky graveyard. When the flood finally settled, 21 people were dead. More than 150 were injured. Buildings destroyed,
streets ripped apart. Cleanup crews worked for weeks. They sprayed salt water from the harbor, shoveled sand onto the syrup, and used fire hoses to wash it away. Even then, the molasses clung to everything, to shoes, walls, and the very bricks of the city. Locals said that for decades after, on hot summer days, you could still smell molasses in the air. The people of Boston demanded answers. How could something like this happen? An investigation revealed the shocking truth. The steel used in the tank was too thin, and it hadn't been tested properly. The company ignored warnings, cut corners to save money, and never hired an engineer to check the design. It became one of the first major class action lawsuits in American history. After 5 long years, the court ruled that the company was responsible and ordered them to pay damages to hundreds of families. Justice at last, but paid for with lives. The Great Molasses Flood changed more than Boston's landscape. It changed the nation's laws. From that moment on, cities across America demanded strict building inspections. Every major construction project had to be approved by licensed engineers. Out of tragedy came reform. And because of those reforms, countless lives were saved in the decades that followed.
Today, most people have never heard of the Great Molasses Flood. It's a forgotten story, a strange, almost unbelievable tragedy. But it happened, and it reminds us that even something sweet can turn deadly when greed and carelessness take control. In the end, Boston rebuilt. The city moved on. But on that winter day in 1919, the streets of Boston smelled like cookies and felt like death. This was the Great Molasses Flood, a deadly river of sweetness, and one of the strangest disasters in American history.
Enjoying history? Please like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories.